this beautiful day, September 2021, with me, VTV 321, live from PM3 Studio, Vietnam. Serve you the updated knowledge of management nowadays with teachers and well-known professors from across the world for 15 minutes. I warmly welcome you to today's session as the first host, Wendy Bùi Ngọc Thảo Anh.
And I'm the second host, John.
Well, it's not fair you got a shorter script, but okay, moving on.
Okay, first thing first, let's make some applause for our first guests on the show, Professor Jung and Professor Ha. So I think maybe they are having arguments between each other about something. Let's see what's gonna happen next.
Thank you for inviting me today. Actually, we make lots of decisions every day, and it's not just a simple action of making a choice. Decision making is the process consisting of 8 steps, and I will briefly go through them all. For this topic, I will apply my own experience in choosing a bank to open an account. Let's start with step 1, identify a problem. We as a manager need to question what's actually happening that prevents the business from functioning effectively. For my case, because of COVID-19, I have to shop online, but the problem is that I don't have an online banking account. Therefore, it brings us to the second step, identifying decision criteria. The manager needs to determine the factors that may affect their decision making. In this case, I need to take into consideration the factor that will impact on which bank I'm gonna choose to open an account. Those factors include security, online banking, ATM distribution, bank's honesty, and transfer fees. In step 3, which called allocate weight to the criteria, the manager ranks those factors to consider them in order, and it basically looks like this. Move on to the fourth step. The available options are listed. In this stage, we just need to identify the alternative, and I choose those 4 banks: BB Bank, ACB, VCB, and Sacombank. In stage 5, the options are evaluated based on the previous criteria. In order to compare easily, I arrange the table and rate each option based on the research I did on the internet. So let's look at the first table. It shows how I rate the bank on all factors. Notice that the score of the criteria may affect the result of the calculation. I multiply them to get the total score in the table too. Step 6 is where the manager makes decisions by choosing the best option. In this case, I decided to open an account with VCB because it has the highest total. The decision-making process doesn't end after the manager has made the choice. It comes to the next step called implement the alternative. This is when the manager puts the decision into action and reconsider whether the choice is still the best one. For example, internet users doubt about the accuracy of VCB bank statement a few weeks ago has provoked me to reconsider all the options after making the decision. And the last step of the process is to evaluate decision effectiveness. In this stage, managers should judge the result to see how well the problem was resolved and whether additional action should be taken. After having the online banking account, I no longer have any issue with shopping online, so I would say that I did make a great decision. Well, so that's all of the procedure of decision making. Once again, thanks for inviting me to the show, and hopefully you can have a brief image of the process.
Wow, thank you for such profound insights, Professor Jung. Now, let's see from Professor Han and what they have prepared for today's show.
Well, when it comes to how bosses make decisions, there are usually 4 ways. The first one is known as rational decisions making. We can basically understand that this method is to make every effort to achieve the best result, right? But anyway, like there will be some assumptions like decision makers know one aspect of the problem and have specific aims, but I would say it's probably impossible in the real world. Well, for example, when Apple released the iPhone 13, no one knows exactly how many units will be sold. So I guess the second decisions making method will appear to be more realistic. It is called bounded rationality, which means that decisions will obviously have some limitations. Therefore, managers will select a good enough options, not always the best one. Taking the example of COVID-19 vaccine, we can see that no type vaccine provides 100% protections. But at the same time, people are dying and cannot wait for the best alternative. Nothing in the world perfect, right? And besides, we have another phenomenon known as escalations of commitment, which mean that decisions makers tend to stick with the previous experience despite negative comments about them. Or perhaps we can say that people usually don't accept their mistake, so they just let it go. Thirdly, there is a decision-making method called intuitions. In this way, decision-making is ruled by our hearts rather than our heads. And managers make decisions based on their experience, emotions, or judgment. Managers who have previously dealt with similar types of problems before will find this way much more time consuming when solving any troubles, right? And come to the final approach, which is evidence-based management. It is based on experience, but this time with data. We are now in the 4.0 era, and there's information sharing available online. So using evidence for management in any business is critical. One example I could mention is that businesses now rely heavily on social media. And to build brand awareness, companies must conduct research on top-raising trends in social media advertising. And when they pay for ads campaigns on the website, data analytics will be performed automatically, becoming a helpful tool for marketing department to determine the following plan for the products. Anyway, in the real world, I think that people use the combinations of 4 types of approaching decisions making. And to be a good manager, people need to know which method to use and when to apply. And again, thank you for inviting me to the show.
Well, as you can see, there are such interesting facts about how those sexy managers make their decisions and many examples that are related to our lives, such as iPhone 13, COVID-19 weapon. That means vaccine, hahaha. Okay, and we have Lynn over here because he is still having some fun subs with his students. Hi, Lynn. Nice shot. So, what is your perspective about making decisions?
Thank you, and I welcome you all to my class. And today we will be looking at the types of decisions and how to classify the decision-making conditions. So let's start with the types of decisions, shall we? There are 2 types of decision. First is the program decisions, and second is the non-program decisions. So, for the program's decisions, these decisions that are repeated over time, and so an existing set of rules can be developed from them. And they handle problems that are straightforward and recurring. For example, on a Monday morning, Karen shows up and insists you to accept her precious KFC coupon when this is a Wendy's. While programmed decisions are those that are based on criteria which are well understood, non-programmed decisions are novel and lack clear guidelines for reaching a solution. These type of decisions deal with problems that are new and unusual and with ambiguous and incomplete information. They require more time to resolve, and decisions for them are unique, like me, not you though, and custom-made, because modern problems require modern solutions. On to our next topic, which is about the decision-making conditions. There are 3 types of conditions. First is certainty, next is risk, and finally uncertainty. So, in the certainty scenario, the manager knows for sure the consequence of each alternative, and they can foresee the facts and the results. An example for certainty can include the need to meet contract requirements. On to the next condition, we have risk. It is when we know that the outcomes may fall within the range of expectation, and it is up to us to control the variability to reduce the risk by employing statistical methods, for example, to control the outcomes and limit them to an acceptable range. Finally, we have uncertainty when the information is so poor that the managers can't even make any reasonable estimate and they aren't sure about the outcomes. So, when decision makers face uncertainty, they will have to choose between one of these approaches. First is the Maximax for people that are optimistic. Next is the Maximin, aka conservative or pessimistic approach. And finally, the Minimax regret.
Yes.
To further illustrate my point, I will introduce you to the payoff table, known as the decision table. The column on your left are the alternative decisions. These are the options available for the decision maker to choose from, and we will assume that the decision maker can only choose one of these alternatives. In the column next to it, we have the states of nature, or the outcomes. And the values in the table are called payoffs. They could be profit, cost, distance, time, and so on. Now, let us look at the Maximax approach, aka the optimistic approach, where we maximize the maximum payoff. In simpler words, it is choosing the best of the best. Using this optimistic approach, we choose the alternative with the best possible payoff. Looking at Plan 1, what is the best payoff? That's right, it is 80. The best for Plan 2 is 65, and for Plan 3 it is 100. Using the Maximax approach, we will choose the best payoff out of all of the values we have chosen here, which is 100. Hence, the decision we have to make here is Plan number 3. The second approach is the Maximin approach, aka the conservative or pessimistic approach, where we maximize the minimum payoff. In simpler words, it is choosing the best out of the worst. Using this pessimistic approach, we choose the alternative with the best out of the worst payoffs. We will first choose the worst payoff in each plan, then finally choose the best one out of them. Looking at the second plan, what do you think would the worst payoff be? Correct, the worst payoff is negative 15. As for Plan 1, it is 5, and for Plan 3, it is negative 5. And now we will choose the best out of all the one we have chosen, which is 5. And so, as someone who chooses the Maximin approach, the decision we have to make is choosing Plan 1. Finally, we have the Minimax regret approach, where we minimize the maximum regret. So, using this approach, we will choose the alternative with the minimum of all the maximum regrets across the alternatives. Regret, aka opportunity loss, is the difference between the best payoff and the payoff received. Let's look at the example when the economy is stable and you have chosen plan number 2, but the plan with the highest payoff is the plan number 3. So, to calculate the profit that you have lost, you will take the best payoff here in this situation. It is 75 minus the payoff that you have received, which is 52, and you will get 23, which is the amount of regret. If you have chosen the plan 3, then your regret will be equal to 0. After calculating all the opportunity loss, we will have the regret table. From here, we shall pick the largest regret in each plan. For plan 1, it is 20. For plan 2, it is 35. And for plan 3, is 10. And so as someone who... Finally, we will choose the smallest regret, is 10. And so the decision we have to make here is plan number 3.
Oh, thank you, Lynn, for your sharing. Wait, do they really teach management for elementary students? Anyways, John, I heard you got your MBA in business management this year. Congratulations! We'd love to hear from you in regards to today's topic.
Well, thank you, Wendy. To me, when it comes to manager, I usually think of making decisions. And during the decisions making process, there could be a number of errors and biases that a handsome manager like me, a handsome manager like me, or even a top manager like Mr. Tim Cook could have, such as overconfidence bias, confirmation bias, or framing bias, etc. But wait, what is bias? Let me give you an example. In my business class, my teacher offered me to pick a random four-member team, and apart from choosing someone that has better enterprise knowledge than me, I chose Ha, Lin, and Wendy because they were my best friend forever, and they would be happier if they were in my team. However, as a result, my team, although we worked really efficient, but had the lowest academic score because none of us were good at enterprise. So it can be understood that bias means when we lean towards or choose something or someone without any logical reasoning or thinking, and that is thiên vị in Vietnamese. Okay, in team working, there are various types of biases and errors that we might have. But the most common one of bias that I think is the overconfidence bias. It is someone overestimates their abilities. It may lead that guy to think they are a better than average driver or an expert investor. For instance, Wendy is a top manager in a big company called Baby Johnson. Her options and decisions affect her company the most. But the thing is, since she was promoted to be the top manager, she seemed to be overconfident a lot and always create her own decisions with less logical thinking and ideas from her colleagues and her company members. Therefore, sometimes she could introduce her new products widely to the customers. However, in the next time, she messed everything in the company up because her own idea didn't meet young customers' demand. So, therefore, the company gained a big loss during a period of time. So Wendy was based her own decisions towards the company's decisions. Okay, Wendy, how can you overcome these issues, especially from bias?
Sure, John. Decision making is not an easy thing. Because if it was, then people wouldn't be making so many bad decisions. Like you, John.
What?
And it's not our fault that we were born as such emotional beings. These noise and emotions are distractions which keep us from making the right call. So, here is the cheat sheet I got for us to be better decision makers, especially for managers. I call it the D seat. Yeah, the seat you sit on and see. Anyways, the D is differences. By understanding cultural differences among others and treating them as how you want to be treated, is the golden rule in management. The S, setting standards so as to ensure the decisions you are making meet your goals as well. Speaking of this, please lower your standards in regards of choosing a partner, Lin. Moving on to letter E. Effective decision-making process in short. Firstly, the process should be efficient, effective, doing the thing right and doing the right thing. Secondly, bring both your brains and heart in. Balancing it out will bring you to the ultimate decision-making process. With A, we need to be aware of when it's time to quit. This is where we should bring the left side of our brains in. Be logical and rational to realize when it's finally time to move on from a decision. And we Sims don't do this so well. As for letter T, Think clearly. Another emphasis on using logic. This can be developed through various of ways you can find on YouTube as we are running out of time. Speaking of YouTube, there's this thing called design thinking which has been going around for a while now. No, it's not exclusively to designers, but rather a set of cognitive, strategic, and practical processes by which design concepts are developed. Finally, considering the internet age we're living in, as Professor Han has mentioned before, we should exploit this as much as possible. Big data. Nonetheless, as decision makers, not all work done solely by technology is great. A good judgment is always needed. It's like how Instagram stalked me and put up some Iron Man underpants ads on. It's not like I'm interested in them. And that is VTV 321 for this week. I'm Wendy Bùi Ngọc Thanh and have a great day.
See you next time!